Hello, welcome to this session with me. I am Samala. So, before I proceed, I would like someone who is watching to confirm to me if they can hear me. So, please, for those of you watching, welcome. Please kindly confirm if you can hear me and confirm in writing. Please just write, I can hear you, something or a similar thing. And then I can be able to proceed knowing that I'm not speaking for nothing. So can you hear me? Please, can you hear me? You have to reply to this question in the comment section by indicating, okay, good. Thank you, Mirabel. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I think I'm going to proceed now. Although we have just 4 people watching, I do hope that other people are going to be able to join us. So to set the ball rolling, I am Sir Mala, and in today's session, I want to talk about taking one's creative writing outside of or beyond Facebook and social media. And this is very important and crucial, a topic to discuss about. But just before I start it, just before I get into the main points that will be discussed, I want to say that I'm not addressing myself to other categories of writers because there are so many categories of writers. But here I'm talking about people who do creative writing, literary writing. And by this, I mean people who write poetry, who write drama, who write fiction as short stories, novellas, and novels. And also, to an extent, people who write creative non-fiction. So it can only be by accident or something of the sort that I might say something which is relevant to people who are writers of content creation, journalistic writing, academic writing, and the other forms of writing are not concerned in today's discussion. So I want to make it very clear and loud that I'm addressing myself to people who are doing creative writing, poetry, prose, and drama, and then also we can add to that creative non-fiction. So that being said, let's start by why do people write? For sure, there are lots of reasons why people write, and I cannot be able to enumerate all of them here, but I will give you a few. Some people write as a hobby. Some people write as a way of spending time and just like, okay, it's a pastime for them. Some people write as a therapy. There are some people who go through situations, traumatic situations, and they find themselves only being able to be liberated by writing about those situations, writing their experience and sharing it. Either some people write and they share, or some write and they don't share. But the writing itself becomes a therapy because it helps a person liberate their emotions. People also write because they want to create an impact in society or to leave a legacy. Some people write because they want to get famous, to get popular. Some people write because they want to get money. Some write for a combination of all these reasons, or many of them, and there are many more reasons, personal reasons for which people write. But the second thing we have to note is there are different routes to getting published. But before we get to that, before we talk about the different routes to getting published, it's also fundamental to note that not everyone who writes actually wants to write and publish. There are people who have diaries, who have other things that are written, autobiographical fiction about themselves and their families. They are written maybe just for the sake of liberating themselves from some kind of trauma, or bad experiences, and they don't actually want to have those published. There are also people, because for maybe political reasons, they might have written things and they are afraid that they are in a dictatorship, and they are afraid for their life if they publish those things, and they think, well, let me keep these ones, and they get published posthumously. That is, after they have died. And then there are also people, who will write and they don't even know about how to publish. But some people, they are so deliberate about it that they are writing because they want to get published. So they set out from the very beginning because they want to get published. And so now, what are the different pathways to getting your work published? Whether you write some few poems, whether you write one short story, whether you write a piece of drama or some non-fiction, creative non-fiction, there are different ways. One, you can publish in literary magazines. You can publish in literary magazines or in anthologies. So, and in some cases, you can even publish in newspapers, but that's quite rare. Some newspapers have columns for literary writing, but literary magazines are exclusively reserved for publishing literary stuff. But you can also contribute to anthologies. And this is the time for me to clarify the difference between an anthology and a collection when it comes to literary writing. An anthology is a collection of works by different people. So if like 10 poets or 5 poets contribute their poems and publish in one book, that would be a poetry anthology. But if one poet takes all the poems of that single poet, and they publish it in a book, that's a poetry collection. In the same manner, if you contribute short stories to a book, that book of the short stories will be called an anthology. But if you take your personal short stories, you and you alone, and you publish them, those are going to be a collection of short stories. So one way of publishing is through magazines and anthologies. Then another way of publishing is self-publishing, what the Frenchman calls l'auto-édition. By self-publishing, sometimes you basically just print and sell. Or if you like, you might want to buy an ISBN number, an international standard book number, and attach to the book before printing and selling. That's self-publication, self-publishing. You can also publish through vanity publishers, and there are a lot of them outside there, and you have to be careful about them when you don't know. Who are vanity publishers? A vanity publisher is a publisher who asks you to pay them to publish your work. And remember, like I said at the beginning, I'm talking only to people who are doing literary writing, creative writing, not other forms of writing. So I'm talking to poets, I'm talking to fiction writers, I'm talking to dramatists or playwrights, and people who write creative nonfiction. And not content writers, and not journalistic writers, and not academic writers. That's a different ballgame that can be addressed some other time. So back to where I was. Vanity publishers will ask you to pay to get published. But basically what they're doing is that they try to make some money out of you. First of all, by getting money, and then sometimes even when they are sales, you are not sure if you're going to gain anything from that. And then in French, they call that type of publishing l'édition à compte d'auteur, because they have two forms of, basically, like broadly speaking in French, they have two systems of publishing, what they call l'édition à compte d'éditeur, meaning publishing at the expense or the cost, whose charges are borne by the publisher, and then publishing whose cost is borne by the writer. That's vanity publishing. Watch out and be careful about that, unless you deliberately chose it. You can also publish in semi-classical publishing houses, or through semi-classical publishing or semi-traditional publishing. And what do I mean by semi-traditional publishing? Semi-traditional publishing, for me, is a kind of term I've created, but it is explaining something that exists. Publishing through publishers who don't ask you to pay anything to get published, who actually invest some of their money into the work, but who don't pay you advance royalties. So that's the category that I call semi-traditional publishers or semi-classical publishers. And now what I call classical publishers or traditional publishers are those publishers who acquire your work. By acquiring, I mean that they actually first of all pay you some money up front, and that money is anticipated royalties on sales of your book. Some people actually get a lot of money from that, and some get just a few $1,000 and so on and so forth. But also be aware that that is pretty difficult to come by for writers. That's one of the most difficult things for a writer, to get into being published by a publisher that will pay you upfront before they do. And in most cases, I can say about 60 to 70% of cases, you need to have a literary agent. Yeah, of course, there are a few cases where you can also land a publishing deal without a literary agent. I don't want to talk a lot about myself in this broadcast, but in some few instances, I might quote myself. So, for example, I've successfully got a book bought, a book acquired, a children's book acquired, and I don't yet have a literary agent. But that's a very difficult thing to come by, but it's not impossible. So I just say it's difficult, but remember, it's not impossible. Okay, so that's it about the types of channels through which you can publish. But under self-publishing, you can also include publishing on social media platforms, writing your poems and publishing them on your Facebook wall, for example, publishing your poems on a blog of your own and then linking the blog to maybe WhatsApp, rather Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and other places. Yeah, so all of those, they fall under self-publication. Okay, yeah, so today the main point I'm discussing is the idea of taking one's writing beyond Facebook. But first of all, is it important to publish on Facebook and social media? Yes, I would say yes, of course. Because one, publishing on Facebook helps authors in the promotion of their books. It can be in the case where you have maybe self-published your book and you're promoting on social media, okay? Or even some of the semi-traditional publishers I just mentioned today, some of the semi-traditional publishers these days, before they accept your book, no matter their literary merit, the quality of your writing, irrespective even of that, before they accept your book, they make sure that you have a huge social media following, because they want to think that at one point you can help them with marketing by leveraging on the people who follow you on social media. So, yeah, of course. And that is why I also have to tell aspiring writers, young writers, people who are just starting to write, because we live in a very sensitive world today, very, very sensitive and delicate and complicated. Beware and be careful what you publish online and what you comment, because some of those things might cost you a publishing deal. Because so many publishers nowadays, they will ask for your social media handles. And in most cases, they're asking because they want to be sure that you have a following that they can leverage for sales, but also because maybe they want to have a rundown, a scan of your history of social media interactions. That being said, publishing on Facebook and social media also helps you, like I already said, to build communities. You can build a community. You can leverage on that community for sales. I know a few people who started by blogging. Maybe blogging their short stories, blogging their poems, and after they have blogged those poems and they had a huge following, people who were super fans of their writing, then those people went on to self-publish books. And then they sold those books so well because they've already built a community. And in some cases, people blog about their work or publish their work on social media, and then at the end of it, because they've gathered a lot of a huge following, at the end of the day, a traditional publishing house comes with a contract, say, hey, you, Sandra, I know you have a huge following. Would you want us to publish some of your poems? So that happens. It's very rare. It's very difficult, but it happens. Okay, and so that's one of the advantages of publishing on social media, and including Facebook. Another advantage is that it gives you exposure to other writers in your genre and to people and other gatekeepers, because writing and publishing is a huge industry with a lot of gatekeepers. And who are gatekeepers? In simple terms, we mean people who act like intermediaries between the writers and the publishers and the readers. This can be editors in magazines. This can be editors, acquisition editors in publishing houses. They can be booksellers. They can be literary agents, all these people, you can call them at some point, you can call them the gatekeepers, okay, or even the reviewers. And also sometimes to a certain extent, you can also include even literary critics, I mean scholars of literary text into that category. So yeah, and of course, especially for people who write from the perspective of wanting to create an impact on society, to leave a legacy, people who don't write because they want to make money, people who just write because they think they are blessed, they have some ideas, they have some powerful ideas and concepts that they want to share with the world in the hope in the in the hope that uh, people will read and get to share in their philosophies, in their perspectives, in their takes on society. So if you are one person who writes, especially with that, because there are many things I write, especially my poetry. I don't usually write poetry because I'm thinking I'm writing poetry to make money from it. Because first of all, it is very, very, very difficult to make money from poetry. Yes, I must take this. I must repeat. It is very, very, very difficult to make money from poetry. And again, I don't write it generally because I want to make money from it. If I want to make money from writing, I never ever even started writing in the first place because I wanted to make money. No. I know money can meet me along the line, but my main objective for writing is because I think I can create an impact. I think I can leave a legacy. I think I can contribute in making the world a better place to live in. So if you are somebody who writes like me, yeah, sometimes that's why sometimes I share some of my poems for free, and sometimes if you contact me behind, yeah, I can even give you a book. Sometimes, yeah, because the important thing for me is not actually the selling and so on and so forth, but it's actually about people reading and that creating some positive effects on them. So yeah, and if you are somebody who thinks like this, I think, yeah, publishing on Facebook and social media would be a great way to go about it too, in addition to other self-publishing channels that you may want to explore. But why do we have to go beyond Facebook? Why? I am coming to this question now, which is the main thrust of today's presentation. And the issue is because I know people, many people, from many countries in Africa and beyond, because I'm quite connected when it comes to Africa as a Pan-Africanist. So I know so many people who write some good poems, some good other stuff, and they always share those things, almost always on Facebook. And even the literary prizes that they enter are only prizes on Facebook, and they're usually prizes that come with nothing at all. Prizes that end in nothing but the name. And they are actually prizes where you just post your poem maybe to a Facebook page or group, and then at the end of the day, the jury rates it. Yeah, that's good work, which must be encouraged. But at the end of the day, and then they will design a certificate, and you can boast around with it. But that is not accompanied by any dollar, no euro, no franc CFA, nothing at all, no monetary value, no material value, and no website for that organization that runs that prize. And then it's like a cycle, and the people are so excited, and they continue and do it and do it and do it and do it. Yeah, if you are doing that and your plan is to end up doing only that with your writing, that's fine and good. And you are absolutely right. You have your absolute right. You are free to think and to decide to do that with. But today I'm talking to those who do those things out of ignorance, without knowing that there are other things they can do out of Facebook with their writing, and that it is important for them to even do those things if they want to build a career as a writer. Because you cannot be planning to build a career as a writer, and writing is a very difficult field. It's a field with a lot of competition, a field with that too many writers that can be published traditionally. So I must tell you this first. There are too many writers in every country, even in countries with many publishing houses, with well-organized publishing industries, like in the Western world. Think whether America or Canada or the UK, Australia, and other European countries. Even in these countries, I can assure you that there are just too many writers that can be published traditionally. Okay, so it's a very competitive field. Then what more about us? Because we know it's not a secret that it's pretty difficult for us in Africa to break through into the publishing market, especially the publishing market that is controlled by the Western world. So, but if you want to make a place in this kind of context, then be aware that you should not end up publishing your poems only on Facebook and entering only Facebook run contests and prizes. That's the point I'm trying to drive across now. Okay. So the point, because if you don't become aware of this fact, and you continue to do those things, and you have plans maybe to one day do a creative writing degree, or to land a good publishing deal, or to get more connections with much more serious people in publishing and much more reputable magazines and anthologies and stuff like that, you will not fulfill that dream. Chances are very few that you will fulfill that dream. If all is that you send your poems to a Facebook page or group where not even a comma can be changed in your poem, and then you are given a small certificate, and that's all. And there is no website you can refer to if you are asking for admission in a university. Chances are that you are limiting, that in fact you are doing yourself a kind of disservice. You can do that once in a while, but also try to do beyond. And so how do you do beyond? The first thing, or why, let's first handle the why aspect. Why go beyond Facebook? First, it helps you to discover and to get acquainted with the creative writing rituals. Please, when I talk about rituals, don't think about spiritual things. No, by rituals, I mean the gamut of activities and procedures and steps involved in writing and publishing. For example, for you, there are many people who have been publishing on Facebook for like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And these people don't know about what we actually call a real submission, like submitting to a magazine or to an anthology, and then waiting with your heart beating for the feedback, for the reply of the people in question to come back to you, in which case it can always be wanting either a rejection or an acceptance. And an acceptance from a serious magazine or a serious anthology never just means that, well, your work will be published as you send it. No, that's just the beginning. If your work, so you need to learn how to submit. You need to learn how to deal with submission and rejection. Some people get even traumatized with rejection, but that's part of the writing life, okay? And then importantly, you also need to be able to work with editors, because when your work is accepted in a serious magazine or journal or anthology, it has to be edited, and you need to be able to collaborate and work with the editor to give good shape to your work before it is published. And unless you go beyond Facebook, there are very little chances that you will ever be aware of these things. So another reason is that you learn to respect submission guidelines. I'm saying this as somebody who has edited a good number of anthologies and has worked within the publishing and writing industry for some time. And I've seen that there are a lot of people who write wonderful poems, wonderful short stories, but they have no clue what it means to respect submission guidelines. And to be honest with you, in serious organizations, in serious magazines and anthologies, if you send in any work that disrespect the submission guidelines, it will be rejected, no matter how beautifully crafted the work is. And so when we're talking about submission guidelines, we have to go to the websites of magazines and read their submission guidelines. And even read what we call masthead. There are many people who are writers that don't know what we call a masthead. The masthead is like the editorial board. You can call it in simple terms the kind of editorial board of a journal, of a magazine, okay? And so you need to, if the instructions say send work that is not more than 10,000 words or not more than 5, you must respect that. If they say send it in Microsoft Word, send it like that. If they say send the work as an attachment, send it as an attachment. If they say no attachment, if they say you must paste your work in the body of the email, you must paste it in the body of the email. If they say your manuscript must not contain identifying information, meaning your name and stuff like that, do not include those things, okay? If they say send your work including a short and a short biography, many people will send without the biography, okay? So you can only learn these things when you go out of Facebook and social media and start dealing with the real places where poetry happens. I'm not saying that poetry doesn't happen on social media. I'm saying that it's just one of the places. But if you want to get acquainted with the rituals of how writing and publishing happens, you will have to go beyond Facebook. Okay, let me look at some of the comments. Yes, yeah. So I'm happy that Sandra thinks like me too, that writing is not about getting the money. Yeah, getting money is one of the worst things I can be writing for. I know that yeah, money can come, but for the most part, I don't write because I need money. And then she also says the amount of work done after being submitted is sometimes bigger than the. Yes, of course, the amount of work done after submitting is most of the time is bigger than the writing itself. Because most often, like a serious editor will work with you and you will almost just rewrite your work. Yeah, it happens. And also, yeah, of course, and that's why I'm saying people have to get acquainted with the rituals of writing, because sometimes rejection is not actually because the writing is poor. Sometimes rejection is actually because the writing is poor. And there are some generous editors who will reject your work and they don't do what we call desk rejection, like just saying, well, this is not a good fit for us. We are sorry, blah, blah, blah. But people who actually like say, well, we liked this aspect of your work, but we thought that you could improve this aspect. Those ones we call in the publishing and writing industry, we can almost just call them like angels. They're very few, but they are helpful. They build the careers of people. Because if you see an editor who is reading through a pile of 500 submissions and he has the time to write, to give you some short feedback on your work, you thank them. Thank them, because that will help you. But in most cases, they don't give feedback. But it's up to you to reason. Like if you submit 20 times, 100 times, and the work keeps on being rejected, it can actually be that you need to rewrite the work. Okay? And they ask for the opinion of experts, people closer to you who really know what writing is. I mean honest opinion, not opinion from friends and close family members who can only say things to please you. No, people who can really say, well, this looks good, but I think it has a lot of work to be done in terms of point of view, in terms of this, blah, blah, blah. People who can give you that kind of advice. Yeah, that's important and it's crucial. Okay? That's important. That is very crucial to be done. Because if you don't do that, you will not grow your career as a writer. Yes. So, yeah, another point now, because I first talked about discovering and getting acquainted with the rituals of writing and publishing, and I've talked about learning to respect submission guidelines, and even like many writers also need, and I can consult on this aspect, maybe like a paid consultancy, but I cannot get into those details now. Some writers do not even know how, like, a poem is supposed to be presented on Microsoft Word, or a short story is supposed to be presented, and there are professional ways of doing that. And if you send your work to certain magazines without doing that, they will just reject. Okay. The other point is that it helps you, or it by going beyond Facebook becomes or creates avenues for you to read the works of other writers and to even discover new trends in the writing community. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely, Sandra. Not opinions from people who know little about creative writing and people who can, people who, if you just put any two words that resemble, they will just think that they rhyme. Like, there are some very deceptive words, and when people mispronounce them, they claim that they rhyme, and then you can write those ones and really claim that you have a rhyming pattern. Although, it's not even obligatory to write with rhyming, but if you want to do it sometimes, I've seen situations where there are words that are deceptively rhyming and they don't actually rhyme. But if you ask the opinion of somebody who knows nothing about it, they will just say, wow, this is a wonderful poem. Yeah, of course, when you are giving criticism on somebody's poem or anything written, the normal procedure is to look for the positive aspects and press them first, and then go to the weak aspects and tell them how they can improve them. It's not about challenging them or insulting them. No, that's the normal way how things are done in terms of giving feedback to creative writing, or even giving feedback when it comes to peer reviewing of academic work. Okay, but then one other thing which I even want to say, sorry for going back a little bit, is that another point about rejection is that also be aware that there are some great writers who got rejected too many times. Some classical masterpieces in literature today got rejected like 20 times, some even up to 100 times. So there can also be a case where you have written something and then 2 or 3 people who are actually experts in literature see that it's a good thing, but you keep on sending it and people keep rejecting, because rejection is also rejection and acceptance. You must be aware when it comes to art, these are subjective things. Of course, we know that there is very beautiful art. We know that there are some people who are great writers. But remember that after everything, when it comes to things of art, there is some degree of subjectivity that goes with the assessment. And that is why even what a writer that might be considered by many people as the best in the world will still receive very heavy criticism from some other people. So you need to know this one. So this is a different case from the case where you have actually written something that is so weak and then it has been rejected many times and you have to rework it. This is different from maybe like you've written a great thing and maybe you're writing on a topic that some people don't want to pick up for personal reasons about that topic, because they have personal beliefs about that topic, though because that thing is a kind of a taboo topic at that time, and then things of the sort. Okay, or maybe you have broken some writing conventions in a way that people is too avant-gardist. Okay, yeah, Chimamanda has got rejected, and there are many bigger writers who got rejected. So rejection is just part of the game. And there are actually even times when an editor can reject your work, and they're also very kind enough to tell you that the rejection was not based on the quality of the work, but because for editorial purposes, they are looking in a particular thematic direction. And perhaps maybe your work was not did not fit in that thematic angle. Okay, so it's possible. So there are different reasons why work can be rejected, but it's up to you to discern and to see if your work is actually rejected because it is too weak. You have to improve it. And one thing about writing is that writing requires a lot of patience. Don't rush with writing. Don't rush with writing, and don't try to compete. Just focus on yourself. Nobody can write your ideas. No way. Even if they write, they will not write the same way like you. And that's why, remember, for those who have taught or those who teach, like some of us who are language teachers, when you give an essay topic in class, no matter, it's the same topic, but different students approach it in a different way. That's how writing is. So never compete, never be jealous of anybody. Nobody will come and write your book. Even if it is the same topic and you are from the same family, the same kingdom, and one person has already written, you can still give it a fresh perspective, because your perspective can never be exactly the same. So there is no need to have envy, to rush around and try to compete. No, just be yourself. Just be authentic and continue to improve, and you go places. That being said, let's come back again to the points, to the things. Yeah, so publishing beyond Facebook creates avenues for you to read the works of other writers, because if you don't read, in every class where writing is taught, they always remind you the first thing about writing is reading. If you cannot read, you cannot write. And if you stop reading, you might have to stop writing. And it's not just about reading anything. You need to read any and everything, but sometimes you also need to read people who write the kind of genre that you are writing. If it is poetry, read some poets, okay? Especially contemporaries, but sometimes also classical poets. If it is short fiction, short stories, do the same. Read some contemporary short stories, but also read classicals. Read the mediocre ones, read the high-rated ones, read as wide as possible, and read particularly from magazines where you are aiming to submit, so that you get acquainted with their taste and with their editorial policy and inclinations. Now, another thing which is helpful when you publish or you go beyond Facebook and Facebook competitions and stuff like that is that you get exposure with genuine, reputed, and specialized publication channels like magazines. Okay? Yeah. That's the only way if you don't go beyond Facebook and train yourself to do these things, know that it will never be possible. And so now I'm just going to give you a kind of random list of some popular literary magazines. Some are really like super popular and very difficult to publish in. Even for now, I'm not yet dreaming about approaching some of them, like the New York Times. I don't yet think about that. But I hope that one day, maybe, if God blesses me and I write a piece and I think it's super powerful, maybe it gets there. But for now, I will give them, but I have to tell you that some of them are like medium sized, but some of them are like super high up there, and to get there is pretty difficult, but never impossible. So, and that's why you now, if you grew beyond Facebook and social media, you get to know about magazines like New York Times, Granta, Kenyon Review, London Review of Books, Johannesburg Review of Books, and then And even those that are middle ground, you have to know about magazines. You know about African-based magazines, which are also super good, like the Johannesburg Review of Books that I just mentioned. But also you have to come to know about the Kalahari Review, Open Country Magazine, which is also very rigorous, Bakwa Magazine, Bridal Paper, which are also very rigorous, and Saraba Magazine, and the list continues. Okay. Yeah, maybe that day will come someday, but I don't want to aim, I don't want to aim too high. And generally, I don't want. Yeah. It can come. If it comes, fine and good. If it doesn't come, that's not. I have other ambitions in other things. So yeah, and I need to be honest with myself, and I need to also always remind us. Yeah, these places I first counted, like the New York Review or the Paris Review, the New York Times, or the Literary Financial Supplement. Those places are super difficult to get in there. Yeah, they are super difficult to get in there. So you need to be, if you are aiming there, and that's why generally, if you ask my honest opinion, for starters, please start with smaller magazines and grow gradually. I know, yeah, there have been very few cases of people who just shot straight to these super big magazines, and also because the people were super talented. Yeah, those people are few. Unless you have actually assessed yourself and you say, yes, I know I'm one of these super talented people. Because one thing I like about myself is that I am always very good at assessing myself and knowing what I can do and what I cannot do, or what I can do now and what I can only do later. And I'm also very good at seeing somebody who does something better than me, and I say, wow, you know what, this thing you do better than me. Like, I mean, like, people who, if I read your poems, there are people and they can testify to you. I don't want to give names, but some of the closest people in my circle that whose poetry I've read, there are many of them whom I've read, and I say, do you know you write wonderful poems, and your poems is more powerful than mine. I don't care. I have to tell the truth. Because for some people, they like have some kind of ego and they don't want to acknowledge. I'm that kind of person that, this kind of proverb we say, if some man pass, you carry a bag. No, me, I be that kind of person. When person pass me, they carry a bag, with they go. And then they compete. And they do that kind of stuff. And they do for my level. Okay. Yeah, that's it, Sandra. So the point is, start with the smaller magazines. I will repeat, start with the smaller ones and then aim higher gradually. Also depending on how you continue to improve. Because as we know, the other magazines, the first set of magazines I enumerated, are super difficult to get published in. Yeah, so that's a clear fact. Having said that, another important or another importance or another important factor or another benefit or another advantage of publishing beyond Facebook and social media is that you get to build a solid CV for eventual book deals. Because remember, for some magazines, even before they publish you, or let me not even say magazines, yeah, let's say for so many publishers, both semi-traditional and also traditional publishers, before they accept your book to publish, apart from the quality of your book, they need your autobiography. And in your autobiography, they need to see some publishing credits. They need to see that you've been publishing in a number of magazines, and not just any magazine. Because remember, there are very funny magazines out there. And what I always say is that, how do you know if a magazine is serious? Read the work on their website and see if you want to write that kind of quality of work. Especially, and look at their work. And if you see a magazine that has published with too many typos, too many misspelled words, and you're publishing there, you're wasting your time. So serious magazines are those that will edit your work. So if you even read one and you're not so sure, and then you send your work and they just accept the work and the work is going straight to being published, I know, yeah, many of us, we've been there at the start because there was nobody to hold our hands. But today I'm helping you tell you this so that you can avoid it earlier. If there are magazines or anything that just accepts your work and publishes it just as it is without even touching a comma, a full stop, or asking you to rewrite something, chances are always higher that that is not a very serious magazine. Yeah. But now the serious ones, like I said, are those that do rigorous editing if your work is accepted, and also those ones whose acceptance rate is very low. And so a publishing house that wants to publish you will want to see you have already published in those kind of places to be sure, to be aware, to confirm that, okay, you've already started establishing a base. Okay, you've already started establishing a base and creating a community. and that your work is resonating with people beyond them. So apart from this, it will also help you even in getting literary agents. Who knows? You can publish just one short story, because we rarely have literary agents representing poets, but we have them representing fiction and then children's books and stuff like that, and non-fiction. So what I'm trying to say is that you can publish just one short story in a good literary magazine, like let's say Granta, for example. And because of that, an agent reads it and decides even to reach out to you and say, hey, have you already got an agent? Do you want to be represented? Okay, I'm considering that. Rarely happens, but it happens. Okay, it doesn't happen every day, but it can happen. So that's why I'm saying, even to get agents, and even when you are writing the first time, you're contacting an agent and submitting to them to check if they would like to be representing you. Apart from the quality of your work, if they also see that you've published, you have a track record of publishing in good magazines and reputable magazines and anthologies, that can also sometimes influence their decision about your work. So and then also, even if you're preparing to eventually study for an MFA, what is an MFA? It is a Master of Fine Arts. Most creative writing master's programs are called MFAs, but we also have Masters of Arts, MAs, in creative writing, and also maybe even MSTs or ML and MLITs. But those other ones like the MAs and the MLITs are very few. Most creative writing programs are called MFAs, Master of Fine Arts, and in creative writing, because we also have Master of Fine Arts in other things like photography, sometimes drama and theater and other stuff, or cinema. Okay, yeah. But the point is that because when you will be applying for a creative writing master's, for example, and remember that for a creative writing master's, you don't need to have studied literature or English or French for your bachelor's. You can come from chemistry, you can come from biology, you can come from anything, but as long as you are writing good stuff. Because when you are applying, you have to send them samples of your work. Samples of your work, especially published ones. Even if they're unpublished, you need to also prove that you've been publishing elsewhere. You've been publishing. And so all these things count in helping you. And that's why I'm talking about. So you understand why I'm talking about these things today, because there is a huge career that can be built around writing, and it's very complex and requires a lot of steps. But if somebody spends their entire time publishing only on Facebook and entering only Facebook-based competitions with no prize, with no monetary or material prizes attached to those, if that person is dreaming to do all these things I'm talking about today, then it means the person has to wake up and start working. But if it is, and I always respect people's choices, if it is that the person has actually chosen to only publish their works on Facebook and only get into Facebook competitions and end there, fine and good. That's a good decision. Okay. All right. And the last benefit of going beyond Facebook is also to build a writing community. Now, I'm not talking just about a community that will be able to buy your work. No, I'm talking about a writing community, because another thing that is important for writers is to have a writing community. Surround yourself with other writers. Even have a writers critic group. Have people who are also writers with whom you can exchange work. You can say, and then you actually deliberately agree on that. I say, okay, fine. Do you want to be part of my writing group? Do you want to be? These are things that writers do in countries where writing is taken serious. And then you can meet and talk about your work and exchange your work and read your work and critique your work, and then you improve. And it is not very easy to do these things if you only limit yourself to Facebook publishing or Facebook prizes. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? So, yeah. Yes, of course, Sandra. Most Masters of Fine Arts need published work. A few of them will just focus on the quality of the writing sample. Because one thing is that even if you have published and you have published in quotes, I don't want to use the word trash, but anyway. Yeah, even if you have published and you have published trash and, and you want to apply, you will not get it. You get what I mean? Like, so whoever has published, if they have not published serious work and they even apply, because when you're applying for a Master's of Fine Arts, what are the three most important components, or let's say the two most important components of your application? You have the creative writing sample. And that's why we always come back to this whole idea that even though, yeah, some people, I know there are many people who say, well, creative writing programs are not things to be done, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't want to get into that thing, but one thing you have to understand is that even creative writing schools believe that writers are born. even there. And why do I say so? Because they never take anybody without proof of having started writing. And that's why the writing sample is a key component when you're applying to do a creative writing program. And the more your creative writing sample is composed of works which have already been published and published in reputable places, the higher chances you have. But again, even if you have not published in those places, but you really have strong, good quality writing, which can seduce the members of the admissions committee, fine and good, you will be taken. Another thing that is important will then be also maybe your publication track record, but in addition to this, your personal essays, the personal essays, what they call motivation letter. What it has different names, okay, but it's basically you saying why you have chosen to do that creative writing and this particular school and with these particular professors and things, and then the plans you have, what you want to do after you've done it, and then also the quality of the letters of recommendation given by professors and people who know your work to support your application. And so you need to be able to know all these things. You cannot end up only being a Facebook writer. Okay, you cannot. Okay, fine. So, and the last point I was talking about is that, like I said, you need to build writing communities beyond Facebook and beyond social media. And one thing I should restate, I've already been stating this variously, but I have to restate it now, is that publishers and other stakeholders in the book industry or other gatekeepers cannot take you seriously if you are CV, if you're writing CV, or what they sometimes they call an artistic statement. You might have to have a writing CV and also the artistic statement separately, but sometimes you have to join them together. But the truth is that no serious creative writing tutors or publishers or other stakeholders will take you serious if your CV is filled with a list of publications and prizes won on Facebook. Yeah, they will not take you serious. I don't want to call names, yeah, but I see that happening a lot of days and a lot of times. So watch out. If you want to take your career further, you have to publish in places that are good. They must not be the best, but at least publish in a magazine that has a website. Please, that's what I mean. At least choose a magazine with a website where you can refer back to it. Because chances are that people will not take it serious if the place where you published or your work is only a Facebook page or a Facebook group, and the place where your work was read and judged and a prize handed ends only on a Facebook page or a Facebook group or so on. They will not take it serious. Copy this. Now, the last segment of my discussion for today is going to be on some practical steps you have to take to go beyond Facebook and social media. And I must admit that some of these points I will be raising now will sound like repetition, but repetition, they say, is the bedrock of teaching. And I'm a teacher. So yeah, some of the practical steps is Google search and select medium level magazines in your genre and read samples therefrom. Yes, this is very crucial. Go to Google, look for magazines. If you are a poet, look for good poetry magazines. Though sometimes you'll find magazines that publish both poetry and short fiction, but sometimes you can also have magazines that specialize only in one genre. But look for magazines, read them, and see if you are writing things that come close to their quality and to their taste. Okay, and read, because there are many good very reputable literary magazines out there that have free content on their website. There are also some that you have to subscribe before you read, especially those which are called paying markets. Yeah, and permit me to make just this short distinction here, that when you start dealing with magazines, at another point you also come to understand that they are what we call paying markets, or paying magazines and non-paying magazines. But for a starter, please look for non-paying magazines. Non-paying magazines will accept your work and edit it and publish it for you, okay? But the paying magazines are those that will read your work, like it, and then they send you a short contract, in fact, and they buy the work and before they publish it. And most of those ones which actually pay, then they sell their work in printed editions, or even if the work is online, it is subscription based. But whatever, even for subscription based magazines, sometimes they will put on past, let's say pieces from past editions will be put under free material which you can read. So always make sure that you read from the magazine where you are intending to publish. Okay. Yeah. Let me read this long comment from Geoff Philios. He says, a great advice. I really love this. I've always loved writing, and at times I really forced to think I'm really going far, but I really want to go beyond so, but never had to get to good. I really appreciate this great hoping to go beyond. Good. Yeah. I'm happy that you have found this helpful, Joe. So if you are thinking about growing a writing career, you have to go beyond Facebook and Facebook prizes and those things. You have to be that there is a lot of work that goes on around writing and publishing, which is not on Facebook. Okay. And I'm happy you're finding this helpful. So at least I can sleep today, and I can have a sound sleep today, knowing that of people are finding this helpful. And yeah. Okay, now I will continue. Like I was saying, Google search magazines, go to their websites, read samples of work there, read there as much as possible, read there for inspiration, read there to know what people are writing about, read there to see the trends, but also read, of course, to judge if your work is up to that task before you can make the decision to submit to them. And also read their submission guidelines and follow them strictly. Because one other thing I've noticed that it is very easy for people who only publish on Facebook not to have good email etiquette. Like they might not even know how to start an email by properly addressing the editors and so on and so forth. So you need to learn these things. So you can only learn these things when you go beyond Facebook. Yeah, of course, I can offer advice consultancies on some of these issues, but I want to give you the general basics that can help you even without you spending anything. Yeah. Next thing, submit to those, once you have read from different magazines, submit to those whose scope, quality, and rigor match your work. So once you have decided that, well, their scope, their thematic direction, their editorial policy, and the things they like, and so on and so forth, they match with what I'm writing, you can try your luck, start from there. Also, submit to literary anthologies. And one thing about anthologies is that, yeah, as a starter, try as many anthologies as possible. But as you grow in the field, you begin to, at some point, you might even start becoming a little bit selective and looking at, because for anthologies, what make an anthology reputable are mainly two factors: the reputation of the editors of the anthology, and also the reputation of the publishing house where it will be published. But generally, I don't really care a lot, because for me, I don't write so much about reputation. I don't write so much about money. But I want to tell you something that I personally do not like, and which many starting writers fall victim into. I feel usually very uncomfortable dealing with any anthology that I am aware people who have contributed to it might not have a copy, either an electronic copy or a physical copy. Yeah, sometimes I know it's very expensive for struggling publishing houses to be able to print the books and give to people who have contributed to an anthology, but it makes a lot of sense that in those cases, electronic copies can be given. Because for me, it just sounds, just awful. It sounds so bad that you would write and contribute to an anthology and you are not able to have access to it, or at least even to your work that is printed there. Or you are, and sometimes people are literally just forced to make sure they buy. Yeah, it's very important that when you publish in an anthology, and especially with struggling publishing companies, it's also important to support them by buying if you want to buy. But I don't like it when it is like obligatory to buy. But yeah, this is more personal anyway. But yeah, I just thought I should also share it so that you can be able to take well-informed decisions when it comes to this. But remember, the two key important factors when choosing where to submit for anthologies, especially when you have started growing in the field, at the early stages, try as many anthologies as possible. Don't be too selective. But at one time, you might want to be selective. And if you want to start being selective, then the two key factors to consider, I've said, they are: one, the reputation, I mean the writing reputation of the editors, or even plus maybe the editorial experience, but usually the writing experience, and also the reputation of the publishing house. Okay, another key step to take is to enter, to compete or to enter into literary contest, to go in for literary prizes. And I should also again briefly distinguish They're basically two. I'm not talking about the Facebook literary contest, okay? I'm talking about serious literary contests that are organized by magazines and other organizations. Generally, there are two types. There are those with entry fees and those without entry fees. Most of those with entry fees will ask for entry fees like $10, $20, and so on and so forth. Excuse me. In some cases, for those that ask for entry fees, if you come from a country in Africa or in some countries in Asia, they might say, okay, fine. They might say they might give you an exemption on not paying the fee. But generally, just what I want to say is that I advise anybody following me now and who is Cameroonian like me and who is struggling to start a writing career to avoid entering into contests that ask for you to pay to enter. Generally, you will just be losing your money for nothing. So, since, as I've said, broadly speaking, there are two types of contests you go in for. There are those you don't pay a fee to go in for, and then there are those you pay a fee for. I advise you not to try those ones with the fee. If you have money to lose, fine, go ahead, but I don't try. You can't. Okay. Or I can only try that on very few occasions, but yeah. Okay, another thing is that there are also literary contests where you cannot enter as an individual. The literary contest, let's take for example the Ken Prize for African literature or for African writing. I've had the privilege to have attended a Ken Prize writing workshop, and I've been published in their anthology. But one thing I want to let you know is that prizes like that, which are very good and very reputable, that's like almost we can call it the Nobel of literature in Africa almost, is that you cannot enter that competition individually. You have to have published in either an anthology or a magazine, and then the magazine publishers or editors will then look at judge some works within a certain period, and if they choose you as something they think is so good, then they can enter it, they can send it to them and pay. If there is any payment, anything to be done, they will do it, but I'm not even sure there is any payment. They will send copies to for the prize. So there are prizes where only your publisher, and by your publisher I actually mean a publishing house or a magazine, where only them can enter that competition on your behalf. So the only thing in that case would be that if you are published, okay, wait. If you see a competition and you think that you are a good fit, you can remind your publisher and say, well, there is this competition going on, could you enter me for it? If it is a competition where you cannot enter individually. But there are also a lot of competitions you can enter by yourself, okay? Yeah, and that's why, yeah, for example, you can enter, let's say, the Minister of Arts and Culture competition in Cameroon. At one time, I was one of the winners. You can enter, for example, the Brunel International African Poetry Prize, which is very difficult to win, but also one of the most reputable poetry prizes for African writers. You can enter, for example, the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, and for the Commonwealth Short Story Prize is very prestigious, reputable, and the good thing is that you enter directly, individually, okay? You can enter prizes like the Griffin International Poetry Prize in Canada. You can enter contests like Short Story Day, Africa. You can enter like even the Miles Morland Writing Scholarship, which is very prestigious and comes with a lot of money and very difficult to get, very, very difficult to get, but also possible. And the good news is that recently we had a Cameroonian win it. Yeah. So now another thing would be to attend writers' workshops. Where you find them, try to attend them. Okay. Another point would be to Google search and to select semi-classical publishers and start with them. When you have done all these things and you feel at one point that, well, I have some good work, I have work, I think I want to publish it, and I don't want to pay my money, because in most cases you will go and vanity publishers will take your money and then they just print trash and leave it there, and they don't care about advertisement, But if you think that you already have some good work and that some publisher might be willing to invest their money in it, and you'll also be willing to help them in promoting that work, so that at least they can also recover their own money, because remember that literature doesn't really sell, okay, especially poetry. So then you can start off with looking for some semi-traditional publishing houses, and at the beginning of this I explain what I mean by this. I mean those publishing houses who will not ask you to pay to get published, but who will not pay you advance royalties before, and who promise to be paying you royalties after sales. Though in some cases, some promise and never pay, but some actually deliver. Yeah, of course. And writing is not all about wanting to make money, especially as far as I'm concerned. That being said, and then you start looking for other ways to get like literary agents to be represented and other stuff. And yeah, I said earlier, and I'm saying it again, I'm happy to offer consultation, paid consultancies on some of these things. If you want to dig deeper into more questions privately, I can be able to offer some paid consultancies on that. But I think I've given you a lot of information today, which is helpful, without holding back. And so at this moment, I would like to take questions and answers, okay? Just for a few minutes so that we can end. But before that, I want to acknowledge the presence of a great writing guru who is just joining me now, Grand Erico Ngale Charles. I'm honored to know that you're watching, sir. He is one of the biggest names in Cameroon Anglophone writing nowadays, and he's watching from Boyatown. And also, I want to read comments. Oh yeah, thank you, Cham. Thank you, bro. For thank you. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Theophilos. Thank you, Vigilius. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mirabel. Thank all of you. Thank you so much for watching and for your comments. I can only be able to mention the names of people who have commented, because for those who have not commented, I can't see who they are. Thank you so much. So, what did Cham say? Cham said, Eric, am I going to, when I feel like picking up and dusting my little hobby, and that's once in the blue moon? Great point. Say, okay, thank you, bro. I'm happy that you found this helpful. Yeah, now it's time for questions and answers. I've been speaking for about 1 hour now, so let's say about 10 to 20 minutes max. If you have a question, you can type your question in the comment section, and then if I have an answer for it, I will give you the answer, and if I don't have, I will tell you I don't have, or I'll go looking for the answer. So, time for questions and answers. Sandra said you should be on honeymoon. Wait, what's happening? It looks like I'm not aware of something. Anyway, we have to talk. We have to talk after, when this is over. Okay. Questions, remarks, comments, observations, contributions, additions to what I've said. Anyone who wants to contradict and say that all what I've been saying are lies, you are welcome. If you want to say all what I've been saying are lies, you are very welcome to have that video. So, thank you, Grand Erico. Thank you. So, yes, questions. I'm saying this and looking at my timer. Any questions you've got? For those who have been watching me, one thing is that because of the nature of my work nowadays, there was about 2 or 3 years ago, I used to do live videos so frequently, but for those who observe me, you know that has become quite infrequent. So this is an opportunity that I don't know when next. I cannot even promise you when next I can be coming back to this kind of stuff. Yeah. And when this is done, I think I will take this video to my YouTube channel. When somebody asks me any question I think I've already answered here, I will always send them to that channel. At least that can spare me repeating a lot of stuff that I've already said here. Thank you, bro. I've heard. I've been waiting for your email. For the ensemble. So yes, any questions you have? All of you who have watched me, do you have any question to ask? Perspective from maybe the writing point of my presentation today was on both sides of that coin of writing. I mean, the side of writing and the side of publishing and other things related to a writing career. So please feel very free. Oh, sorry, Tom had network problems. I hope that you will be able to watch it later on, Tom. Okay. Yeah, so it's time now to ask questions on any one of those aspects. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that you found this helpful and that you've now seen why I put the title as Going Beyond Facebook. Yeah, because I've seen people with very great talent and the talent is nearly almost just ending on Facebook and they can do better with it. So the point is not to denigrate or to laugh at people. No, as I told you, and you know, I'm one of those people who also publish on Facebook. So from time to time, but you need to publish on Facebook for those who want to really grow their career while knowing that there are other ways of going about it. Thank you, Mr. Mbinka. You said the content is really enriching. How it has to do more with what about the case of Israel like myself? How do I go about publishing my books? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mbinka, for this question. I will try to. Can you please specify the kind of books you write? Do you write the books? What do I want to say? Like, do you write the books just as general history textbooks? Or you write the books with the intention of publishing them with academic presses, like university presses and other stuff, and like, or another question, what is your main objective of writing those history books? Do you want them to become textbooks used by students in a particular class, whether secondary or university, or do you want them to be read by the general public? Because I can only give you advice when I know I get answers to some of these questions or all of them. So please briefly tell me, like the audience, the people you target with those history books you write, and if you write them with aiming for an intellectual audience, or aiming for a general audience, or aiming for an educational audience at the level of secondary and high school, what kind of who are your target audience with that? If you answer this, I can give you some ideas, and we can also even maybe talk more about this later. Yeah, because I can also decide to talk only about academic publishing, and that one would be a completely different topic. And I think at one point I will do that. Okay, Sam, let's hope that the video will not disappear when I end it, and then you can be able to watch. Welcome. Okay, thank you, Sandy. I will share the link with you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mbinka, I'm waiting for you. So choose. If you like to give me the answers to the questions I just asked, if you want to give them now, you can give. If you feel like we can have this conversation, only two of us, just let me know in the comments and we can move ahead. Any new questions? Okay, we have about 2-3 minutes to go if there is no question. But I have to wait again because I assume that maybe Mr. Mbinka is typing. So meanwhile, Samuel Toby, because I should specify because there are two Samuels who are watching. Samuel Toby just came in, and Dozak Samuel was also watching earlier on. Samuel Toby, who just came in, do you have a question maybe? Did you have a pre-prepared question before coming? Okay, questions downloading. Bon, j'attends. Yes. Did you have any pre-prepared questions? I have just a few minutes to go. And I just want to be sure that I don't leave somebody's question unanswered if I can be able to try to answer it. Okay. looking at the time ticking and watching the comment section. Thank you for watching, Cynthia. Thank you again, Mirabel. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Samuel. Dosa. Thank you, Vigilius Mukong. Thank you, Asim Bank. Oh, I didn't see you. I didn't. Oh my God. Thank you for watching. And I didn't. I missed out on your comment. And you had actually said I've actually written and published my book, but some days I still feel inadequate, and I'm open to learning every day. Okay. Thank you, and congrats on your book. And I hope that you got at least one or two things here that could help you continue on that journey that you've started. And wishing you all the best of luck as you continue on that journey. And it's a journey not to stop. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Theophilus. Thank you for Mukam. Thank you, Enrico, Grand Enrico. Thank you, Mr. Mbinka. And thank you, Samuel, Toby. Thank you, Cynthia. Well, I have to go now because there are no more questions coming. Thank you, and do stay safe.